I'm not gonna brag too much, but when it comes to rescue licenses, I'm kind of a big deal. I have been pushing companies for many years to pick up old titles that I absolutely adore, or even new titles that never really got a physical release. Pushing companies on Twitter and any social media, my podcast, everything to really hit on the idea that there's these precious gems out there that I absolutely adore that never got the right justice that it needs. And I'm also somebody that puts my money where my mouth is. Whenever I push for a show to get licensed, I make sure that I support it. Things like Scrap Princess, yes, even True Tears, Double Damped. I love these titles so much, and I want people to enjoy them. And unfortunately, there's a lot of titles out there that will get initial release, or they'll get streaming, but they'll never get an actual physical release. And being somebody that loves his collection and loves having these titles so that at any point, I can fire these up and not have to worry about a license dropping from a streaming service. But unfortunately, the job's not over. I'm not done yet. There's still plenty of titles out there that I really think deserves to get attention and need to have somebody go out there and rescue them. Thankfully, with companies like Anime Ego picking up so many older titles like Otaku no Video, Bubblegum Crisis, Gunsmith Cats. I so love the fact that I now have a copy of Gunsmith Cats. Discotheque picking up so many old titles like Urusai Yatsura, Orange Road. There's so many in their list of titles. And even Nozomi Entertainment jumping in there and grabbing things like Zetsuba Sensei, which I've been pounding on for so long for somebody to pick up that title. And additionally picking up titles that other companies won't touch, like Interspecies Reviewers. Thank you. But again, the job's not done, so I'm here to give 7 more titles that these companies are more than welcome to pick up, and I will definitely support when they actually get to releasing them. So with that said, let's jump into this list. For my first one is Air TV. Now, thankfully, I have a copy of Air TV. This was the ADV release of Air TV, and yes, later on, they did have a DVD release from Funimation. But unfortunately, I think this is a series amongst all the other key related series is probably the only one that I think of that doesn't have a Blu-ray release. Maybe Canon as well, but really all the titles like Clannad and everything get so much attention and multiple releases, and yes, Blu-ray releases. And Air TV, I think, is a title that really deserves to have that attention. This is technically the first of the key series titles that actually made me fall in love with the studio. And it's such a fantastic series about a cycle of tragedies. And I love the characters, and there's so many fantastic moments in it that I believe that just, unfortunately, like I said, this is kind of one of the only key titles that just really doesn't get attention. And it really does deserve that attention. So yes, somebody, if Funimation still has it, give us a Blu-ray release. Up-res it. Give it some quality. Now, unfortunately, I don't really trust them to do that up-res, but still, it deserves it. And that's technically assuming they still have the license. I don't see it streamable on their website. And there's a lot of these titles that I'm going to be going through where, yes, some companies may still have control over it. Some have lost it. But the big question mark up there is who really holds control of it and who needs to pick it up. For my next one, this is the biggest tragedy. This is the biggest tragedy of 2016 and onward, and that is Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju. This is a series that streamed on Crunchyroll, and I felt like it got a lot of people's attention, though maybe not enough. But even still, it's a title that deserves to have attention. It's a title that deserves to have a physical release. This is a series that ever since 2016 when I first started watching that show, and it was literally in my top favorite anime of all time, I kept questioning who's going to release this thing? Unfortunately, Crunchyroll, it was a streaming service at that point. They didn't have any contacts that was doing physical releases, and yet this was sitting here, and it deserved to have a physical release. It deserves a place in my collection, and unfortunately, it's not getting that. For those that don't know what the series is, please go watch it. But it essentially takes place in the Showa period, and it follows Rakugo performers. Specifically 2 people that ends up having a relationship with each other over time that's constantly in conflict and has a lot of issues surrounding it. But what's so fascinating about this series is, one, it does Rakugo performance in an animated format perfectly. Studio Dean they pulled it off. Like, these performances were so engaging. And Rakugo is not really an engaging thing to watch, but they pulled it off. And additionally, the other interesting thing about this series is that it actually follows the life of somebody from pretty much childhood all the way to being an adult. It's really somebody's entire life, and it's showing the evolution of Rakugo and the performances themselves, and I think it is a fantastic series, and again, it's technically in my top favorite anime of all time. For my next one is a very personal thing, and it's honestly with everything that I call out for them to rescue license, there are things that I personally love, and I want to see physical releases, and I want to see, streaming services get them again. Bahari and Goo, or as the English translation was something like the jungle was peaceful and then came Goo. It's essentially about a boy who lives with his mother in the middle of a jungle, and at some point, Goo came along. And Goo is kind of like an unknown being. She looks like a cute girl, but she's chaos incarnate, and the crazy stuff that comes from that is so hilarious. A lot of the comedy is around these crazy things that Goo will do that he will notice, but nobody else sees. And so when he's going crazy about what she just did, nobody pays him attention. And again, this is a personal favorite of mine. This is something that I watched along with my brother, and we were just laughing the entire time. It is a hilarious series. I kind of regret not picking up the DVD physical release that I think Funimation did at some point. There was even a box set for it and everything. But unfortunately, you just can't really get it anymore. And it deserves another release. It deserves streaming, and it deserves that attention that it deserves. It's a hilarious comedy that I personally, it's just a classic of mine. It's just a personal classic of mine that I'll never forget. For my next one, this was an oddball. This was a series that I just kind of noticed at some point, and I fell in love with it. And it's Minamike. Now, this is a series that did get streaming. I believe Crunchyroll had a lot of the series at some point. Funimation has the 4th season, and that's it right now, which is just really weird. But it's a series that I absolutely adored. It essentially follows 3 sisters who live alone in this apartment, and each one of them have their own personality. There's the youngest, who's like very sharp tongue. She believes she's just a genius, and her sister's an idiot. The middle sister is just an absolute airhead, and she just doesn't really seem to get things at all. And then you have the older sister, which is pretty much the big sis. She's just the one that is the very nurturing mother type that takes care of them all. And the shenanigans they get into is absolutely hilarious. They're so much fun. I think a lot of the humor is around really the little sister and how sharp she is with her tongue and how she's just kind of abusive to her airhead sister. But then there's a lot of side characters as well. A lot of friends they kind of get involved with the story. And it's just a lot of fun. And like I said, technically it's gone on for several seasons, and we've never really had a true release of it, which is very unfortunate. For next one I have this is an odd one probably for a lot of people, something that probably a lot of people won't see coming, and that's A Cheeky Angel. Now, honestly, when I first watched Cheeky Angel, I was kind of off-put by it. The art style, the setup was kind of off-putting, but as I watched it, I actually really loved it. It was a really cool story. It's essentially about this girl who claims that at some point she was a boy and that something appeared and changed her into a girl. And so she doesn't really like the attention she gets as being a female. And as it goes along, you have, people that are her friend. At some point, some rough-looking guy falls in love with her and just wants to be with her, but she constantly rejects him. And it's just like I said, it's a very odd story, but it was very charming. It's very much in the vein of a comedy, maybe comedy rom-com-ish, but it was a lot of fun, and like I said, I was very surprised by how much I really loved it, despite the fact that the art style wasn't really something that I was into at first. I loved it so much, it was a series that at the time, I really wanted to get into the manga, and I never did at the time, but it's definitely something I want to look back at. Alright, let's get on to the big elephant in the room. He's like right over here somewhere, you just can't see him quite yet. Yes, Monster. I know this is one that a lot of people have just been clamoring for. Monster is a series that just took over the anime sphere at some point, and it's one of those titles that whenever you ask people for those amazing titles that they should check out, in most lists you're going to see Monster. It's just a kind of overall, across the entire anime sphere, everybody kind of acknowledges it. It's kind of like Fullmetal Alchemist. It's just something that everybody acknowledges as being a classic. But unfortunately, it's never got the attention and the release that it deserved in the West. I believe at some point, one company was doing one volume of it, didn't sell well, and so they stopped. There's been releases in other regions, but unfortunately, nothing really here. And again, not having it available on legal streaming services is kind of a letdown. Now, we do have a perspective of why that is, and that's through Sean Kleckner. Obviously, Sean Kleckner is the CEO of Right Stuff, and he has actually said in several interviews and AMAs that the whole situation with licensing that title is just, it's almost impossible. He claims that it's in like a quagmire. It's just like a state that's just, it's kind of impossible. Like there's so many things at play that just really make it extremely difficult. So it kind of gives you an indication that, at least Sean Kleckner's trying to get it. So at least there's some attention trying to get to it. It's just, unfortunately, there's something there preventing it. And it's a series that, unfortunately for me, I've never watched. I've never seen it on a legal service, and I kind of want to watch it on a legal service. I want to wait for that time where somebody rescues it, and we can finally watch it legitimately. Now we'll see if I can still hold out Might end up having to give up on it, but we'll see. And for my last one, this one's that's been kind of near and dear to me. I've been fighting for this one for so long. I've even had conversations with the original licensor about what's going on with this thing, and that's Katana Katari. Now, this is a series that had an interesting release. It was actually an hour-long episode, each episode, and it released monthly throughout the year. And I remember watching this series every single month. I absolutely loved it. The big surprise that a lot of people miss on this whole series is for anybody that loves Monogatari series, this is Nishio-san. This is his work. This is something, again, that deserves the attention that it's unfortunately not getting. And it's just artistically gorgeous series. Now, it was streamed at some point on Crunchyroll. It did have the big box set release from United America, kind of like the ones that I have back here for Hanasaki Roha. But at some point, they went out of stock. And I searched for years trying to find this. Even at some point, I contacted the contact that I had with United America and I said, where is this? Are you guys ever going to do another print of this? Because the prices are getting ridiculous for this release. And they said, no, we dropped it. We dropped the license. It's out there now. And somebody needs to pick this thing up already. I don't care. Just do a standard Blu-ray release, something. Give me something. Because it's so unfortunate that this classic, which has an amazing story, has amazing visuals for it, is just sitting out there. And it's only available to those that either want to pirate it or go buy those god-awful expensive releases that are now on eBay. So there you have it. I'm doing my service to the anime community and still chiming on these companies. Please pick these titles up. And again, I know that there's a stipulation with Monster, and again, there could be stipulations with other stuff as well. We don't really know. But all I can say is that they're titles that deserve to have attention. They deserve to be available to people to stream. And yes, they deserve to have physical releases so that people can have them in the collection. With that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely spread the word. Tell these companies about these titles. Tell them that you want them, because they don't know if they should actually have them unless you tell them. Additionally, I welcome you guys to go down in the comments down below and let me know what titles you would love to see physical releases or access on streaming services. Also, if you like this video, hit that like button down below. Share this video if you can. Support us on Patreon or through our tips link in the description below. We definitely appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.